Trinn, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm honored that you took the time to talk with me. You have such a compelling story. And so often, I believe the most beautiful gifts are born out of tremendous pain. And without putting words in your mouth, it seems to me, in hearing your story, that your journey is really a testament to this. And I'd love for you to share that story of healing and recovery and hope with us. But before we go there, I wonder if I might ask you a few questions that maybe go a little further back. Are you okay with that?
Sure.
Okay, great. So I was wondering if you could just tell me, take me back to your childhood. What was Trin like as a youngster?
As a youngster, my family would say that I was very shy, very quiet. I didn't cry a lot as a baby. I waited 40 hours to come out, so I was patient. um, we moved around a lot. My parents were both in the military. I was born on a military base. Um, Moved from the U.S. to Australia when I was young, maybe 3 or 4 years old, and grew up there and went through all my schooling and college and finished uh, finished school there, and then moved back to the U.S. and kind of retrace my roots to see where my family was from and spend some more time here, and then returned to Australia and came back again. And I've been back here for 13 years this time.
Okay. So, was there anything in your early years that you could have thought might lead you down any part of this path where you now find yourself today?
Um, I knew from a young age that things could happen if you really wanted them to happen for the right reasons. I was part of my childhood was um, until the age of about 11 or 12. I just didn't really know how to communicate with kids my age, and they would bully me, and so I ended up with a bit of a track record of getting beaten up at school. When I was about 12, I remember this Maori, a New Zealander guy. I was raised Mormon, so my family was Mormon at the time, and he was actually a Mormon missionary. And he came over to our house, and he saw that I'd been beaten up, and just started talking to me on a level that I could understand. And he said, "You don't have to take that, bro. You got to stick up for yourself." I said, "Well, I don't want to hurt anyone." And he said, "Well, you got to stop other people from hurting people that can't take care of themselves. So go out and pray and ask God and tell him that you want to be big and strong so you can protect yourself, and tell him if you give him that, if he gives you that, that you'll protect other people." And he said, "I promise you, God will bless you." And I went, "All right, that sounds easy enough." So I don't know how long it was later, but the opportunity came up and I did that. I think out of frustration, and just kind of yelled at the universe and said, "I don't want to get beaten up anymore. I want to be able to protect myself." And about 3 months later, I was diagnosed with something called acromegaly, which is gigantism is another name for it. It's when your pituitary gland produces too much growth hormone and you grow through the roof. So my testosterone and all my levels were off the chart. They didn't have a chart to read it at that time. And it turned out later, well, I found out 20 years later, it was actually a microedema on my pituitary gland, not acromegaly, but it caused me to grow to the size I am now by the time I was about 13. And so I was the size of a man playing rugby with kids that were half my size and getting mistaken as a parent on the rugby field. So
Oh,
I went through
wow.
rapid growth rate, and I never got picked on again, and I turned my life into one where I protected other people. That became my job. I got into private security and went through the ranks of that and ended up at a very high level. And that's what I chose to do with my life until I hurt myself.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. So, did you have um, like any sort of affinity to being around nature? Because of your experiences, you kind of morphed into this leadership role where you're protecting other people. Um, but was there like, did you just need to be around nature?
Yeah, the only time I really remember my escape when I was a child was fishing. And I realized that I could get up as early as I wanted to and not get in any trouble. Whereas if I stayed out late, I'd get in trouble. And I could just go fish, and nobody was telling me what to do. I was out in nature. I was loving just being on the water. I lived around the water most of my teenage years in a place in Australia that was known for its beaches, and that's what I did. As I got older, that happened less and less, and I had more less and less opportunities to get out in nature, and I've definitely identified that as being something that I missed and spend a lot more time doing now. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you share with me any other pivotal moments that you feel especially very early on. Because I feel like, a lot of times we come into adulthood and we don't realize all the things that contributed to us landing on that path where we now find ourselves. And, you know, I think we're so focused on the day to day, we're so distracted, um, that we forget to look back and just kind of see what was the common thread that runs through my life, and what were those parts that just really made me who I am today and gave me, the passions that I have today. And so you've shared a few already. I was just wondering if there were any others, or you might want to elaborate on the ones that you've shared already.
Yeah, I would say a common thread would be my mom's example. My mother, she ever since I can remember, she was always spending time helping other people and was very compassionate and giving and loving, and she would always go out of her way to help people feel better. And whether that meant cooking them something or helping them afford something that they needed in their life or paying a bill, um, she was always that person that I noticed people would come and ask, and it would always surprise me, even when people would ask for things I knew she didn't have, that she'd find a way to get it for them. And that was a really strong example to me my whole life, and it kind of shaped and prepared me um, for having a life full of service, where you just really devote your life to trying to help other people. And that was an example that I got in my youth and carried on throughout my life, and even now she's very much the same woman.
Does she know that she was so influential to you in that
Yeah, I
way?
think she's got a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
And if she doesn't, love you, mom. And now you know.
Yeah. Oh, that's sweet. Um, and so I read the article that you sent me from Brains magazine, and
Yeah.
it was just fabulous. And I will have the link to that in the description. But for those who haven't read it and maybe won't, um, that so eloquently chronicles all the events that led up to the founding of your company, Jampha. Um, would you like to share with us in as much detail as you're comfortable with and capitalize on those moments that specifically put you on the path to founding Jampha?
Yeah, the first would be hurting myself. I was living in Virginia, and I owned my own security company and been doing it for many years, and was at a high level of that with a bunch of bodyguards working for me and representing people that were influential, and I was doing very well. And it was during that time that I broke my leg pretty severely. I ended up in hospital with multiple surgeries. The doctor wanted to amputate my leg. It was that bad. And my mom, another case in point of my life, she refused to let him take my leg. And as my next of kin, he said, well, he's going to be in pain for the rest of his life. He's not going to be happy. He's going to be on a bunch of medications. This isn't a way that he'd live. Taking the leg, he's going to be able to learn to live with it and get back to his life. And she said, no, don't do it. He needs to make that decision, not you, not me. And so they kept my leg. And I went through multiple surgeries, ended up in traction for 3 or 4 months. My parents took care of me. She would have to clean my wounds. I had external fixator, big, long poles sticking out through the bones, attached to each other, holding multiple fragments of my leg and my ankle in place. And
Um,
so I had multiple complications while that happened, cellulitis and some other infections and things that almost caused me to lose my leg again. Long story short, I ended up on 16 or 17 medications long term. Was like that for multiple years. Ended up on disability because I was unable to work with really bad PTSD. And no matter where I turned, no matter what specialist I went and saw, it was always just, here's the piece of paper, go to the pharmacist, we'll get you back in for a follow-up. And I was like, how can you tell what my body, my mind, and my spirit need in 20 minutes and then write it on a piece of paper and expect that to work? I just couldn't understand it. It seemed like just didn't make sense. And so when I got to my lowest point, I got to the point where I didn't want to be here anymore. I just was a pain on my family. They were supporting me, and I wasn't able to work. Nothing really felt like there was nothing that I really felt like I could live for, or wanted to live for.
mm,
And so another one of those moments, I went out and prayed and spoke to the sky, to the universe, and said, I don't want to live this way anymore. I'm at my wit's end. I'm being a real burden on my family now. At that time, my mother was going through multiple brain surgeries for her own brain tumor, and my dad was dealing with her and then trying to support me at the same time, and it was just really taxing on everyone. And so I said, if there's a way that I can heal, show me that path. I've got nothing to do the rest of my life. And I really meant it. I said, I'll spend the rest of my life helping other people find a path that's the same or similar. And kind of forgot what had happened. And about 2 weeks later, I ended up working at a newly opening cannabis store. Learned what CBD was and was gifted some CBD from somebody and started to use it and started to be able to take myself off of those medications. And it was a long process. It took about 2 years, and I went through the ringer having CBD product that was good and then CBD product that was tainted with heavy metals and pesticides. But I could see a glimmer of hope with the potential that the CBD was bringing into my body for healing. And I continued to really focus on that path and try to figure out what I needed to do to get my body balanced out. And I knew there had to be a combination of these cannabinoids. And what I came to learn was the cannabinoids were really important, but terpenes was where the magic was. And as I learned to understand which terpene isolates had different properties, I was able to put different combinations of them together to assist healing in different areas or aspects of the body. And I started to have great success with that. I was able to, first of all, get myself off of Adderall, ADHD medication, which I'd been on for years. And I found something that really worked. And I went, wow, all right, it worked for that. Let's see what it can do for PTSD. And so I spent another few months working on that formula, and that became our calm formula. And that got me off my medications that I was taking for PTSD. And so the list goes on. Over the course of about 2 years, I was able to get off all of those medications. And now with my renewed health, really started to focus on a way to keep my my end of the deal. But at that point, I was going through financial hell with all of my surgeries and all of the medical bills. Wasn't in a position to do anything really for anyone. I could barely keep my own head above water. And so I put it out to the universe. I said, wherever the path is that takes me there, show it to me. And it led me to Bellingham. And through somebody that I met through that cannabis store, I moved here. And within about 2 years, had met the people that I would go into to begin and start Jampha with. And so Jampha really became an expression for fulfilling that commitment to do my part if I could find a path to healing for myself.
Great. So let me, if I could just have you rewind a little bit. For anyone that's not familiar, can you define what a terpene is, please?
Yes. Terpenes, in a scientific point of view, are the parts of plants that are responsible for their smell, their taste. They also have medicinal properties. And so terpenes can be isolated. To give you an example, lavender, which we all know is a beautiful essential oil with calming and relaxing properties. Largely, those properties can be attributed to linalool, which is a terpene isolate that's found in lavender. And that isolate is actually safe for consumption and has medicinal properties beyond what just lavender has. And so when you start to pull these terpenes, these isolated constituents of plants or essential oils apart and figure out what their isolated characteristics are, they can influence healing on multiple levels in the body and work really in magical ways with the neurotransmitters in the body. So they are largely have largely flown under the radar. Most doctors that I speak to don't know what a terpene is, which is just mind-boggling when you think about how much schooling they go through, that they're never taught that there's a constituent of a plant that's responsible for its response to viruses, to bacteria, to invaders into its environment, and also for different healing aspects of our environment. And so when you start to give the body these, they really know how to communicate with the biochemistry of the body in a way that is very influential on healing and in supplying the body with the intelligent guidance that it needs to heal. In Tibetan Buddhist practice of Shara Rigpa, which is a spiritual healing science, terpenes are considered the life force energy of the plant. And so while they have a scientific aspect, they also have a spiritual aspect. When a herb is harvested, it's usually dried and put into a dry preparation, and that's how Ayurveda and Tibetan medicine is used, dried herbs. But as Amchi, our Tibetan doctor, noticed, and I noticed as well, during that process, the terpenes are lost, and the terpenes are a huge component of the healing potential. And so what we've done is really identified that and gone to work to create what we call synergy enhanced terpene infusions, which is our science for combining terpenes into different combinations with directed healing potential.
Wow, so that's fascinating. I mean, I'm familiar with tinctures and herbal remedies and things like that. I love learning about all of those things, and I remember hearing you talk about terpenes for the first time, and it's just amazing and beautiful that these things are given to us freely in nature, and that you have found a way, and your company has found a way to harness those healing properties the way you have and make them available in the products that you do. And I wonder if we can just touch on for a moment the difference in allopathic and versus the more holistic approach to health. I always say, at best, allopathic medicine is incomplete, and at worst, it's flawed, right? But you make a very, very good point in that article, and I'm sure there's more out there, but I've only seen the article and heard you speak once, that it is, I wonder if you could just touch on, like, why is it necessary that we look at both aspects, the allopathic way and the holistic way? And what are the
Yeah.
benefits to be received by one or the other?
Yeah, I mean, the diagnostic ability of Western medicine, of allopathic medicine, is really amazing. The ability for us to identify where the problems and the disease systems are is second to none. And also the way that we're able to treat trauma and surgeries, the way that we're able to save limbs. If I had lost my leg in Asia, I might not have kept it. America is very, very ahead in what they're able to do with different technologies. But you lose some things with what you gain as well. And unfortunately, the way that we treat internal conditions by using different medications that have all of these crazy contradictions with each other. I can't watch TV anymore. I watch a TV show at one of my family members' house and see these interactions for something for not even a life-threatening condition, but they can take this drug and it'll kill them. It makes me I can't believe what I'm watching. Is this a fake news? Is this not real? But no, it's real. And that's really the difference between Tibetan medicine and allopathic medicine. Is Tibetan medicine focuses on giving the body everything it needs to heal the source of the imbalance, not just targeting the symptoms of the issue, but giving the body the support, the minerals, the nutrients, the botanicals, and now terpenes. The body can use those combinations as its own pharmacy, and come up with exactly what it needs to create and also to support and sustain a healing trajectory. And you'll never hear a doctor say healing trajectory, because what they're giving you is to help you feel better, not necessarily to heal. Very different in that approach. As well as just the amount of analytical work that can be done with Western medicine. There's a lot more funding and research that goes into it. It's definitely not the case with Eastern medicine. I looked for some study that I was doing for different Western studies into Tibetan medicine, and I could find only a few dozen, and that's in 100 years. And this medicine's been around for 2,500 or more years, with an unbroken lineage of applied science looking into the specific healing aspects of minerals and plants. It seems like you'd want to look a little further into that treasure chest, and that's their loss and our gain, and that's really what we're doing now.
It's a beautiful thing. The other thing I think we tend to do, especially here in the West, is just we compartmentalize health. So over here we have the physical, and we have the mental, and then we have the emotional, and then we have the spiritual. And it's like there's all these compartmentalizations going on, when really we're one thing. We're one
Right.
creation. And so I wonder if you could touch on, like, how, especially in your healing journey, you mentioned PTSD, which I've also had, and severe pain. And, how did you approach this as from a holistic point of view? Did you at the time, because you were still learning, um, did you approach it as more of like a compartmentalized situation where I need to do this for my PTSD and I need to do this for my leg?
At the start, I did, because I knew what I wanted to do and I knew what I needed to do, but I had no idea how to do it. Other than my own experience, healing myself and supporting my own healing, I'd had very limited experience with anyone else. And so I learned what I could and went to work with that, which was different combinations of cannabinoids and terpenes. And I got really far with that by myself. And I thought, wow, this is it. We found it. This is the holy grail of plant medicine. And then a few years later, I met Amchi Thubten Lekshi, our Tibetan doctor and dear friend, and he just opened my eyes. And one day he said, Trinla, cannabinoids are one drop in an ocean of healing. Terpenes are a few more drops. There's so much more that's out there. And when you bring these together, you have an ocean of healing. And that really kind of hit me. And I went, but hang on, I thought CBD was it. It's it. No, it's one ingredient that helps to unlock some doors. But what we have in the botanical and mineral kingdoms is a plethora of support in infinite combinations that can bring just about anything into a healing trajectory. And so I used cannabinoids and terpenes and made different profiles and got over one issue with my own health, and then I'd move on to the next one. So it was more of a process of one, then one, then one. But now with greater understanding and experience, I've learned that we can group together different combinations of our infusions and that they'll always work synergistically together. It's very different to allopathic medicine where, people call a lot and say, am I going to have a interaction with taking this and with taking this? No, you're not. Our answer to that is, if you take something, try to give 2 to 4 hours between doses, because your body's having an intelligent conversation with the living essence of that bottle, whatever that formula is that you're taking. And it's good to have a one-on-one conversation like we're having now. If I was trying to do 2 podcasts right now and you're trying to do 2, we'd have a real hard time making sure we got everything from both conversations. And
Right.
so that, other than that, and that's not an interaction, that's just a consideration. There's really nothing that causes anybody any distress or discomfort whatsoever. And that's so different to what you're used to in the West. I had all kinds of interactions. I actually kept on piggybacking all these medications because I took this and then I got restless legs, and then I took this and I couldn't sleep, and then I got this and I had brain fog in the morning, and then they gave me, the list just goes on. And we work from a point of view where you give the body the right combination of support, help it into a healing trajectory, which usually for acute conditions, which are short-term conditions, is just 30 days or less, and for chronic conditions, usually 3 months, 90 days, we see enough of a marked improvement and a beginning of a healing trajectory where the right diet, environment, and considerations in lifestyle will continue that healing trajectory, and you're not required to take anything for the rest of your life. And that was a big part of us creating this company, was making sure that we had an entry strategy for everybody that needed to use the products, and an exit strategy as well, where they were supported to stay in good health without continuing to need to purchase our products.
That's a beautiful thing. So, I wonder if we could just talk a little bit more about the practical things that, especially people that aren't familiar at all with herbal remedies and tinctures and things like that. Like, how do your tinctures differ from something I might order on Amazon or get at a vitamin shop?
Yeah, well, I mean, it starts really with the cultivation of the ingredients. If you go to our website and just read our blog about the practice of Sour Rigpa, which is the Tibetan healing science, the tradition that we follow, and from where all of our information and knowledge comes to create our products. But they've been following a really stringent guideline of how they go and get the herbs and the botanicals out of nature. And so they go out into the Himalayas and they pick them by hand, and they say prayers, and they ask the spirits in the area to bless them and to give freely of what's available there in nature, and very much honor in every part of the sequence the relationship that they have with the botanical and the mineral kingdoms. And so just that consciousness that goes into that process is the beginning of what makes these formulas so powerful. When they get to us, they go through a blessing and an intention and preparing process that's very spiritual in its nature, not religious at all. It's just making sure that the right energy is there for people to have the highest aspect of healing possible. Um, we create products that are unlike anything in the world. We've really created a new expression of plant medicine because of what we've done with terpenes. If you think of a dried herb like a dead body and a terpene like the spirit, what happens when you bring those two back together? Well, now you have an animated body with life, and an animated body with life can do a lot more than one or the other can. And so really we're giving power back that's lost during that drying process in the way that the botanicals and the minerals are able to interact with the biochemistry of our body. Terpenes are like the special forces of the plant kingdom. If you think about cannabinoids, a good analogy is that cannabinoids are like the Army, the Navy, the Air Force. That's the military. It does the work. It gets the inflammation out. But when you have a specific problem, when you have a very intricate imbalance going on that's affecting multiple body systems, terpenes have the ability to, in the right combination, affect healing that's very, very complex. And it's because they are the special forces of the plant kingdom. They have specialized abilities to get in there, do the work, to clear things out, and to allow that inflammation to be removed or whatever else is causing the imbalance. And so that aspect of what we're doing alone brings it into really a very advanced expression of what's available anywhere right now. But also the way that we make our medicine available to everybody. You know, energy is carried through everything that we do. And when we create something, we can say, all right, this is our price, and we're a company, and we're going to make a profit because that's what companies do. But we're also never going to say no to somebody that's in need, and we're going to have a program that provides this medicine to somebody, whether you have no money or all the money in the world. You know, that offsets and creates an energy that's balanced and inclusive and not exclusive, and those things and more contribute to really a higher expression of medicine. It's being done for the right reasons, with the right ingredients, and with the right knowledge and information to really bring it into a correct and vibrant expression. And we have Amchi, our Tibetan doctor, to thank for that. You know, he spent 45 years perfecting his art. He went to the Himalayas as a young man in the 70s and learned what it took to become an Amchi. And over the course of about a decade, he became one of the first Westerners to be given lineage in the practice of Sowa Rigpa. And he then brought that knowledge and wisdom back to the West and has been practicing it for 45 years. And now all of that wisdom and knowledge and that unbroken lineage, it's very much alive in everything that Jampha does.
Beautiful, beautiful. I wonder now if we could kind of transition into talking about the actual founding of the company, because I'd love to be able to capture that story. Like, you came from this place of desperation where you just cried out, like, there's got to be a different way. I don't want to be on 17 different pills and still be in pain and then have to deal with more side effects to those pills. Help. And I can resonate with that so much, because the times I've learned the most too about health were exactly like that. Like, take us through that journey of like saying, that's it, I'm done, there's gotta be a different way, to meeting all the right people and things lining up just right and doing what you now do. I'd love to hear that.
Oh man, it's a long story, but let me give you the short Reader's Digest version.
Okay.
Let's see here. I mean, the company really started because a dear friend of ours, Aaron, he went to Costa Rica and he was having an ayahuasca ceremony. And he was deep in the ceremony and started yelling at his shaman lady. He needed his phone and he wouldn't be quiet. So she went and got him his phone and he called us. And he was very I couldn't understand what he was saying very well. He just kept saying something about veterans and healing the world. And the lady got on the phone and I said, "What, is he okay?" And she told me what was going on. And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry that he made you call me. I don't know what this is about." She said, "He wanted me to give you a message. He's going to bring you money and you have to heal the world with veterans." And that was a message. And I went, "Okay, all right, Aaron, thanks, buddy." Didn't think anything of it. Just thought it was him, you know, whatever. And maybe 2 weeks later, he showed up at our house and walked in with a bag full of money and said, "This is to start your company. You need to go and do what you've learned how to do with CBD and terpenes and make something." And I looked
Wow.
at him and went, I don't know what to do with that. You know, I'm not in a position to really start a company. And he said, "I've seen it, just do it." And so that's how we got started. And about 3 months after that, We actually moved into a house that he was selling, that the sale had fallen through, and I just met my wife at that time, and so it was perfect. We moved out into a place where nobody really lives, but I had worked with a company that had a $2 million cannabis facility, grow facility, and a full service lab that was based out there. And one day at a supermarket, their son, a biochemist, just randomly saw us and came over and gave him a hug and said hi. And he said, "Yeah, my parents are struggling finding somebody to rent the facility. They're trying to sell it, but the market's turned down and nobody's interested. And it's like, if you could do anything with it, they give you the keys. You know, they love you." And I went, "Oh, okay, cool." And I felt the pull, but I was like, "There's no way I'm putting my name on a $2 million facility." And about 2 weeks later, we saw him again, and he was with his mom this time. She was just the sweetest lady, and she'd actually used some of the CBD that I'd used up until that point to help herself. And she talked us into it and said, "Just come, you know, we'll set up a rent agreement, but if you guys can't pay it, we're not going to hold you to it, and we're not going to let you get in a bunch of debt. Let's just see what you can do to help." So we ended up taking over the facility and started the company, and we spent a year there in research and development. And because of where we were, we had biochemists showing up from Western University just wanting to get experience with us because of the new hemp industry, and all these amazing people just started showing up. And the first thing I'd say to them is, "I don't have any money, I can't pay you." And they say, "We just want to learn." And so at that point, we were trying to get permission to sell our products online, but because of what we were doing with terpenes, no credit card processors, risk managers wanted to work with us. And so we went through about 8 different applications and got turned down. And I finally just said to one of these guys, I said, "What do I got to do for you guys to say yes?" And they said, "Get an FDA food scientist to sign off on this is safe." And I remember after that phone call looking at my then fiance, Karina, and saying, "I don't know how we're going to manifest an FDA scientist, but whatever." About a week later, this little lady came knocking on our door, and she said, "Hey, I'm Kelly. I'm a FDA food scientist. I've been really wanting to learn about hemp. Do you mind if I come and just work with you guys? You don't have to pay me." We looked at each other and went, "You got to be kidding." So she started for about 6 months and worked with us. And she went over the terpenes, had no idea what a terpene was at that point. She said, "You know, what you're asking me to do is putting my ass on the line. And I really don't know what this all is about, but I'm willing to learn." And I said, "All right, well, how do we teach you the best? What's the best way for you to learn?" She said, "Well, I have high blood pressure and my husband has high blood pressure. Make me something that gets rid of our high blood pressure and I'll believe you." And I went, "Okay." And she went, "Really? You can't do that?" And I went, "Well, the terpenes, I'm sure that we can." And she said, "If you do that and you bring our blood pressure down, I won't charge you anything, and I'll give you what you need. Or I won't charge you for my time. I'll only charge you for what the costs are." I went, "All right, deal." Well, we made it, and about a month later, she called us up and said, "You're not going to believe this. Our blood pressure just went down." And she actually stopped working for us at that point. It came to the end of her term, and we got a notice from her with an invoice about 2 months later, and it was for $1,700, and it should have cost us about $70,000 for the work that she did for us. And that was her keeping up her end of the bargain. But that became our balance formula. And so each of our formulas really kind of has a story like that, where it began with a need and us trying to fulfill and help somebody in our circle and our or that needed help, and balance was one of those. And so we had that facility, everything went great, and then COVID came, and the hemp market went from $4,000 a kilo of distillate to $400 a kilo of distillate. The market was flooded, nobody was buying anything, and we had to downsize. And so again, I was looking for somebody to come and take over that facility so that we could get into a smaller one and focus on making our products rather than processing a lot of hemp, which is what we'd been doing up until that point. And synchronicity came knocking at the door again, and the gentleman who'd actually given me CBD for the first time at the cannabis store that I'd worked at came to the facility and was interested in doing a deal to take it over. And within 60 days, he took it over, paid out the rest of our debt, made their family happy. They had everything that they needed, and we were able to come out with an exit strategy that left us with, on top when we were doing well. And so that was the universe blessing us again, and we found a place that was just a few hundred yards down the street from where we were, so it wasn't really a huge relocate. We paid a huge discount on what we were paying there in fees, and everything worked out. And so from here, we picked up some smaller facilities and started to do some projects working with other companies. And at that point, we had Amchila show up, and he actually Instagrammed Karina one day. And a caveat to this story I should share before we do this is, about 2 weeks before she got this message, we went to Arkansas, and we have a hemp farm there, and go there a lot. And part of a ceremony that we did there was an intention ceremony to set a positive intention for something that we need in our life. And so we wrote down a little piece of paper with this group that we were with to find a Tibetan doctor who understood how to do the herbal part of what we wanted to do, who was going to be able to help us to fulfill our mission and to bring him forward. We were ready to to meet him. And 2 weeks later, he sent a message and said, "Hey, my name's Archie. I'm interested in what you're doing with terpenes. Can I come and visit?" We had no idea at that time that a Tibetan doctor was called an Archie. We just thought that was his name. And he very gently guided us into understanding more of what we had created. And he shared with us not just about the botanicals and the minerals, but also about the spiritual aspect of what we were doing, and really helped us to come into a greater understanding of that. And so from that point, we began to develop our Tibetan pharmacy line. And about a year and a half into that relationship, we brought both of our companies together. And now Tibetan Pharmacy and Jampha are one.
Wow. What an incredible story. That saying, you step out, you don't even see the whole staircase, but you just step out and there it is. And I just love that story. So, what would you say to someone who's never tried any sort of herbal product, doesn't have any experience with a tincture, and might be a little bit afraid of trying?
Yeah,
What would you say to them?
I would say the basic premise of Tibetan medicine is do no harm. We will never make something that could cause somebody harm. That's just not within the spirit or design of anything that we're doing. Herbal medicine is made to interact with the biochemistry of your body. It speaks the same language that your biochemistry understands. And so when that conversation's open, the miracles of healing can occur. And what I really would stress, and I tell people every day, is anybody who tells you that they're going to heal you, they're not being truthful, because you're the only person that can heal yourself. Your body is the master healer. Your body, with the right support and the right guidance, will do all the work. Thinking that you're going to take something outside of yourself to mimic or to take over from that process, it's not correct. The correct way to look at it is you need to establish a healing trajectory by supporting your body in that process. And so botanical and minerals are responsible for keeping that balance in the body. And when you have the guidance that terpenes offer, you add another dimension to that. So taking it, I would just say start small. We have people who can take one drop of our products and their whole body washes over as if they've taken a full dose, and they say that's enough for them. They're very energetically sensitive, and because there's a spiritual aspect to these infusions and these products, sometimes that's enough. But don't feel like you're taking a chance or a risk. You're really not. The greatest risk you're taking is that you'll find something that resonates with you in a way that's has a deeper and more powerful connection than probably anything that you've ever tried from a doctor. Doctors give us these things that are supposed to help us, and a lot of them are just isolated components of different botanicals and trees and things in nature, because Western medicine doesn't understand the correspondence, the interaction, the connectedness between all of these living essences and ingredients. And that's what Sour Rigpa or Sour Rigpa in Tibetan medicine really understands and teaches. And so when you are open to that possibility that there's a different way of doing things, and you have a really a truthful with yourself intention to heal, those are really the only two factors that I consider are necessary ingredients to making this a successful and empowering experience for you. If you're considering trying Jampha's products, I would say there's no risk, because we have a 90-day money-back guarantee. You can try it. If it doesn't work, call us and we'll give you your money back. We're not going to sit there and ask you questions and try to talk you out of it. We're just going to give you your money back, because we believe in what we do, and we're not interested in giving people things that don't work for them. And that's been a big hurdle, at least for me, in trying herbal stuff in the past, is you go and spend $80 on a bottle and not notice anything. And you're like, okay, well, maybe it's making me better, but I don't notice it. Well, that's okay to think, but you do that 10 or 15 times and you begin to wonder. You take one of our products and you're going to feel a difference right away. You're going to notice that it's not the same as what you tried before, and feel it resonate on a level that's not just physical. And so that would be my advice as far as taking anything herbal related.
Yeah, and for anyone listening who does kind of have a little bit of fear there, it's completely normal to be afraid of what you don't understand. And that's
Mhm.
one reason why I've wanted you, Trinn, to just explain even the very basics of what it is, um, that this is and how it works with the body. And one of the things I hear a lot from people, when I tell them I'm taking, now I can tell them I'm taking Tibetan medicine. Um, but, in the past, when I've taken other herbal remedies, they might say things like, well, but doesn't that just mask whatever is going on? Like it's not actually healing, it's not fixing anything. Like if you have to get off this tomorrow, you're going to end up right where you were, sort of an attitude. And what would you say to that? I'd like to hear your response to that.
I would say my business partners would love you. When we pitched the idea of getting people well and then not needing to come back for more medicine, that was kind of like, that's not how business works. And it's true, it's not usually how business works. But what we have focused on, and has very much been the intention from the start, is to help people to establish a healing trajectory and for their body to do the work. It's not something that we ever want people to be beholden to. There are exceptions to that. There are people with terminal conditions and chronic conditions that are incurable, that require some form of support and assistance. And for those people, we help them get into a regenerative trajectory as best as we can. And then usually there is a maintenance dose involved. But for, I'd say, 80 to 90% of the people that use our products, they don't have to use something every day. If they do, it's by choice.
Yeah.
I would also say this is that people sometimes fear trying herbals because they're an unknown, especially when they're taking Western medicine. We get this a lot, and I would say to you that there's no reason why anything that we're offering is going to cause an interaction with Western medications. There is a slight consideration to take when there's a grapefruit warning on something, and you're using a CBD product, and that goes for any CBD product. At that point, you should speak to your doctor and let them know that you're taking CBD because of an increased enzyme that increased absorption of that medication into your body. Other than that, this isn't going to interact with what you're taking. At worst, it's going to make your medicine more effective and stronger, which should be a consideration to take. But we have people who take very complex, medications that supplement different things in their life with our products that don't have any interactions caused.
Yeah, one thing I was wondering about was in the case of someone like myself, I had a thyroidectomy in 2018 because I had thyroid damage from radiation therapy that I had to have in 2004, 5, sorry. Um, and so I was wondering, in that instance, um, I had a missing organ. So
Mm.
how much can these formulas help me? It just as an example.
Missing organs, just it's your body is a marvelous, miraculous healer. I know of a person who had a heart valve issue, and through meditation, their body grew another vein around their heart to supply an inconsistent blood supply. So the body is capable of doing things that we have no idea. And when you give it the right tools, um, it can compensate. But and there's nothing that's going to cure not having a thyroid. But there are blessed, what are called Rinchen Tibetan pills, which are very, very powerful, that are used in Tibetan pharmacy instead of allopathic medications. And they're made from botanicals and minerals, sometimes crystals. They have a very, very specific spiritual tone and aspect to their creation, which serves to resonate within the mind, body, and spirit to find balance, whatever that may look like or mean, in situations like that. And so that would be something I would defer to our Tibetan physician to get his advice on before suggesting anything. But yeah, there are things that will definitely help, and that will do more than what's available to you for at least doing what can be done to heal that aspect of your body. And I will look into that for you. Yeah.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering, if you, other than your own compelling story, and you did share another one too, but maybe one more really off the chart story about someone who was just so helped by Jampha's products.
Yeah. I'll share lots of parts of this story, but right when we got started, um, we met some people that we just met, and something happened where we were trying to buy some equipment and the deal fell through, and he was in the car with me, and he basically just offered to help buy some equipment. And so he invested some money and helped us to get it, and we became friends. And we were on a trip with him, and his wife, now wife, got a phone call, and she just had it on speakerphone, and it was her mom, I think, or her aunt, telling her that her cousin was being sent home from the hospital to die, and that he'd had cancer, that they'd stopped the treatment, that his organs had started to shut down, and that if that she wanted to say goodbye, she should come home. And they're all going, ah, and I'm going, why didn't anybody tell us? We could have helped, you know. And I said that to her, and she was you know, in a state, and Darian, her husband, said, let's call her mom. And so we called her mom, and she said, yes, they'll try anything. Trevor, his name's Trevor. Trevor will try anything. Send him whatever you got. And like a week before that, somebody had ordered some stuff from us that was on the same island as where this person lived. And they had a whole regiment. And I just had a feeling that I should call them and ask if they'd be willing to take him something, because it was an emergency and I'd send them fresh stuff. Called them. Yes, they went straight there. So he had his medicine within a few days. And 4 days later, we got a call and said, Trevor's still alive. He's eating. He's like doing better. And those calls kept coming. And it was months and months that he stuck around, and had the time to spend with his family that he wouldn't have otherwise had. And he did pass on, and there was no way that he was going to live through it. But he got days where he was able to go and hit a golf ball at a driving range. And another caveat to the story is, they asked me to marry them when they got married, Darian and Nicole, his cousin. And so we married them just down the street here at a resort, and his whole family came, and in tears in their eyes, they came up to Karina and I and were showing us pictures of all of the time that they spent with Trevor in those months, and pictures of him on a helicopter, skinny, like bones, just hanging on with a big grin on his face, with his two older brothers holding him, you know, and they go on platform shooting off of a helicopter while he's on his deathbed. And that really opened my eyes to see just the preservation of life and the capability of being able to help somebody stick around a little bit longer to have those precious moments with their family. That really lit another fuse inside of me to make this available to as many people as possible, and just to let people know that there's options out there. Now, thankfully, when we get people in that situation a lot sooner, and we're able to see a marked healing. And you know, that experience right there really showed Karina and my wife the power of what the products are capable of doing, the power of really what plant medicine is capable of doing itself. And I'd say that was probably one of the defining moments in us reaffirming what we were doing and what we were committed to, was watching that happen. And you know, now those people are all advocates for Jampha, and they're calling on a regular basis and referring their friends and family, and helping other people that are in need that they see, and just letting them know, hey, this is what happened to us, and we found this, and maybe it'll help you. And that's really been the beauty of how Jampha has kind of, you know, the person that you met, the person that I met you through on Army's channel, Ellis. I met Ellis at a cannabis store. He was asking for instructions from a bud tender there on how to get the right CBD to help his father, who'd been also sent home from the hospital to die with terminal cancer. And he gave him some 10 milligram gummies and said, take one of these 3 times a day. And I just went, oh. And I really didn't want to overstep, but something told me I needed to help this guy. And so I pulled him over and said, hey man, that's not what you need to do. He needs, and I gave him some help based on my experience. And we became friends. His father-in-law lived a lot longer than I expected. And because of that experience, Alice introduced me to Army, and here you are. And so we see this time and time again where you do the right thing and you show up and help somebody and don't have an expectation of reward or anything in return. And it blossoms and flowers into something far more fruitful and beautiful than you could have ever really dreamed. And that's really been the beautiful way that Jampha has unfolded, and attracted the right people into our circle to help us to make it all possible.
That's a beautiful thing. I love it. Absolutely love it. You know, given the type of theme that this podcast is, where it's supposed to be inspiring and encouraging people who are stepping out, wanting to try something new. But I wonder if you had a message that you could give anyone who's looking to do anything that's sort of outside of their comfort zone or is brand new to them, and they just have some kind of a inclination to do it like you did. Like, just in your case, it started with that like desperation, like, I'm done with it, I just need a different way of doing this. But maybe it's not that for someone else. Maybe it's a dream. Maybe it's something that they're almost afraid to dream about. What would
Mm.
you say to them, looking, as you look back on your success? So looking back on your journey that's led to these successes, what would you say to someone who is just maybe starting out or wants to and is a little afraid?
I would say be kind to yourself. We always think the worst and get down on ourselves, and we're so much more powerful than we ever give ourselves credit for. Um, and I would say this: the language of faith is really important. What you say, what you put out there into the universe, it's heard. And if you think of the universe as a big computer, a big quantum computer, every time you plug something that you're saying into that computer, the universe conspires to give you what you want. And it doesn't know when you're being sarcastic. It doesn't know when you're having a bad day. It takes instruction and it goes with it. And so if you want to achieve something in your life, if you want to be healthy, if you want to find a path to healing, then you have to make that known and make that statement clear. You don't have to yell it to the universe. You can say it in your own heart and really register it there, and the universe will know. And when you make that commitment to yourself and to the universe, that's the first step. And all you need to worry about after that is the next step. And the next step will just, a light will shine and it'll become clear. And when it's clear, be grateful for it in the moment and take that step and then wait for the next one. And that's all you really need to focus on. When you try to focus on more than that, you can get lost in the past and the future and the potentials. And what I've learned to be most grateful for in my life is for the present moment, this moment right now. Because if you really consider it, you don't have anything else. Everything else is gone or still coming. And so what you choose to do in every moment paints the picture of your life. And if you're not doing things in every moment that paint a beautiful picture, then change the paintbrush or get some new paint and go back to work, because nobody's going to do it for you. If you think that you're going to find healing from some doctor or some guru or some magician, yeah, they can be catalysts to help you find that path. But once the path's found, you're going to have to walk it yourself. No one can walk it for you. And so it's much easier to find that path by going within and listening to your own inner guidance and your own inner healer. And that's really what we intention and bless all of our infusions for, is to awaken that master healer within everybody that experiences them, and to resync and retune that communication. And just that one process alone puts people on a path where, if they continue to listen to that guidance and follow it, that they'll find their path to vibrant health or to better health, whatever that may be. And so, yeah, that's my advice. Just believe in yourself and speak the words to the universe that create the universe you want, because you're in control.
I love that. I love that you led with self-compassion, or be kind to yourself.
Mm.
Is that's something I say a lot too, is that if you want to create any sort of genuine transformation in your life, or you want to start something new, start by being kind to yourself. Because fear is a great motivator, but it is not one that leads to genuine change that lasts. But
Right.
compassion is. And so that's where we have to start, is with ourselves. And that's something I've done a lot of work around. I come from a long line of self-deprecating talk. And, I think, unfortunately, that's true for a lot of people. But, Trinn, this has been just a fantastic time. I hope you enjoyed your time. Before we
Thank you very much.
close out, how would someone get in touch with you? What's the best way?
That you can email us, real simple, love@jampha.com, love@jampha.com. If you go to our website, jampha.com, we have a chat box. If you just write in that chat box, speak to Trinn, please, I'll get a notification and I'll be able to come and assist you. And if I'm not available, one of our people will be able to set up a time where we can speak. Other than that, we have a 1-800 number. There's always somebody available there to answer questions and to help with product selection. I try to make myself as available as I can to anybody in need. So if you really want to make contact, you'll be able to. Other than that, we have, our Facebook page is Jampha Tibetan Wellness. We also have Instagram and Twitter and all the other good stuff. And so you can find us there and keep an eye out on what we're doing. A good way to really keep updates on everything that we're doing is through our blogs and our email subscriber. If you go to our website, you'll see a little pop-up. You can put your email address in there and you'll receive blogs and emails and different releases of wisdom and knowledge from the treasuries of Suwa Rigpa, which is the Tibetan healing science that everything that we make comes from.
Beautiful. Excellent. Do you have any questions for me, Trinn?
Just thank you very much for this opportunity, and I'm grateful every time I meet what we call in Tibetan Buddhism a bodhisattva, and a bodhisattva is somebody that's anxiously engaged in helping other people more than themselves. And I learned that term myself when Amchi came along, but you very much are one, and it's an honor to be with you, and thank you very much for the time and for sharing a message with your audience.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it. It's great to talk to you.